So you're started out in the Hunter Call of the Wild. You've maybe shot a couple animals and unlocked some new equipment, but where do you go from there? In my opinion, it's important to start to figure out where to find animals and how to find animals in kind of big numbers, because I think the slowest part is the first couple of levels until you get some of the better equipment, better scopes, better rifles, and the ability to take some of the larger game a little more easily. So what we're going to go over mainly today is how to find animals and where to find animals to be as efficient as possible in leveling up. In the last video, we saw a couple of herds of white-tailed deer drinking, and you'll kind of notice a theme as we're hunting along here. We're going to be spending a lot of time near water because, generally speaking, animals are spending a bunch of time near water, and as we can see here, it is currently blacktail deer drink time, and there are just a ton of blacktail out here drinking at their different zones, and there's a couple of bucks here that we can try to take out. These two are broadside, and I think we're going to attempt a shot here that is kind of difficult to make, but you can at least go for it. It's not really going to hurt if it doesn't work out. So what we're going to try to do is actually get both of these bucks. When animals spook in Call of the Wild, there's a bit of a delay, so if we're lucky, we can get a second shot off before these second buck spooks. So we are going to go for the bigger one first. I like to take the shots when their heads are up, just because I feel like there's a little less chance of a mistake, but unfortunately by the time we got that round actually chambered, we couldn't get a second shot off. Now, we could go for a running shot, but I think if we were to do that, there's a pretty good chance of a kind of less than ideal hit. So we'll maybe wait on that and see what they do. Now, a lot of times when deer spook, they'll actually come back to their zone, so we're going to go very slowly over towards where we shot the first buck. We'll check the map and confirm there is hunting pressure, so we did make a vital hit. And we'll see if any of these deer try to come back. Actually, in this case, the deer are just drinking pretty much over there where they ran to, and this is something they'll do as well. They're in a state which is referred to as nervous. Now, we can't see that right now because we're not a high enough level in spotting knowledge. If we go back to our skills here, we talked about skills and perks in the last video. In the ambusher tree up here at the top of tier 1, we have 3 levels of spotting knowledge. And if you look at the bottom one there, level 3, it reveals information about how aware the animal is of nearby threats. So you'll see things like calm, attentive, alert, alarmed, fleeing, or what we would see if we had it here is nervous. And that basically means they're not going to come into any calls, but we can still do pretty much everything else just as normal. So we can try to get that level 4 with our 243, and hopefully that's going to be a vital hit, and we can end up with 2 of them. Now, it's obviously key to get as many deer down as possible because we want to level up and unlock some of that better equipment. So hopefully that's going to be a little bonus buck for us. And we've got our first buck down here, a 132.9, so we're actually just kind of below the gold requirement there. Right long shot at 130 meters with our starter scope, and we can see once again by the 2 bits of hunting pressure that our other buck went down as well. And with a quick track, we can find him down right here by the water. Now, you may have noticed this blacktail buck was a level 4, and we shot a diamond whitetail in the first episode of the Revamp Beginner series at level 2. Blacktail do max at level 5. They're a more difficult species to get, and that means we're going to get a better XP and cash output from pretty much the average blacktail versus the average whitetail, which means they're a better one to kind of work on for that. Now, I wanted to talk about a lot in this video, basically how to find animals and when to find animals. So I think blacktail are a really good species to focus on. They tend to travel in decent sized herds, and obviously we see there, they give good XP and cash. If we open the map and go to this drink zone, they drink from 1630 to 2030, or I would generally say 16 to 20. It's about an hour real time. Time in Call of the Wild is 4 times faster than in real life, so 4 Call of the Wild minutes is 1 real minute, but that's plenty of time to hunt them. And by the way, I wanted to show here on the map where we are getting these guys. This is a great lake for blacktail. It's called actually Belmont Lake, and we're in the Belmont region, so easy to find. Just kind of down here in the southeast part of the map, but a really good spot, and one we can find a lot of blacktail to take down and kind of work on getting some of that better equipment. And even with the does, I mean, we can go for those shots and get that bit of XP. The bucks are going to be worth a lot more. But when we get the opportunity to take a doe, rather than just kind of passing them up, we'll definitely go for those shots. So I think since that one's in the brush, we're going to go for the one that's a little further out. We can try to make that, and then what I want to do is go back to the outpost and take a look at how much weapon score is required to get the next scope, because that is where I think things speed up a lot. Now, weapon score is not something that we've talked about to this point, but every time that we harvest an animal, we'll gain weapon score along with the XP and cash. So when we go ahead and press accept here, we see the cash reward come up, and then once that clears and the next one shows, we see the XP, and the last one is going to be the weapon score, and of course they're on the screen for forever, but 43 rifle score reward for that doe. And for blacktail, I think you get a max of 50 or 51 for all your shots, and that generally is the case for most deer species. For predator species, a lot of times it's a max of 75, but they're a little tougher to find, and I think you tend to get more overall by hunting deer in those herds versus like predators that tend to travel on their own. So now that we know sort of how the weapon score works, we can go into the store, and we want to go to rifle sites, and the site that we're looking for here is the Hyperion. It's the cheapest one at 12,000 cash to buy, other than ones like the Reflex site that doesn't really give any magnification. And if we go back up here, it requires 901 rifle score, and at this point, we only have 309. Now by the time we get to that 900 point, I think we'll be good as far as cash goes. We already have about 4,500, but the rifle score itself is going to take a while. So going back to what I talked about last time, just trying to get as many animals as you can really can help in unlocking that equipment and unlocking it quickly. Now, I want to talk about finding animals mostly in this video, and one thing you can do is take advantage of knowing the zone times. So we know blacktail drink from 1600 to sometime around like 10 p.m. If we go back here, and I'll always pretty much do like the 1630 time in case there are late zones, we can go to like say 1635, we'll call that good, we'll rest, and now we're kind of back to the beginning of blacktail drink time, and we can continue to hunt them instead of worrying about hunting whatever is next, especially hunting in the dark. I really personally don't like to hunt at night. If it's something you're interested in, absolutely do it. There are a lot of animals out and about, but it's naturally a little more difficult to see. Now you do have a light, I'll just kind of turn that on over against this so you can see it, but you're still not going to be able to see nearly as well as you can in the daylight. But back to about 1630 so we can continue on our blacktail hunt, and we're going to go along the water. Like I said, I'd like to pretty much stick near water all the time. Animals like to be near it, and we'll go and unlock this next outpost so we have a little more room to kind of fast travel around or just generally cover more ground. As you're kind of exploring around, you'll no doubt start to run into some of the larger game, because of course to this point we've only been focusing on the deer species as they are by far the most plentiful and easiest to find, but you'll start to see things such as moose, elk, or black bear while you're exploring around on latent lakes. And by only having the 243 equipped, we can't ethically take them. We see, if we look at that again, in the top right of the spotting box, moose are a class 8 animal, and once again to just go over it, back into our inventory and to go over the ammo, the 243 polymer tip bullets only are for animals classes 2 to 6. Now, you could shoot that moose, and if you made a vital hit, it would eventually go down, but you're going to lose one of the medals, and your weapon score is not going to be that good. So what we're going to do in this case is still go ahead and take the blacktail doe that's drinking over there, and we'll go to the outpost and make a move from there. So, as I said earlier, I like to take the shot when their head is up because their shoulder's not blocking as much of their vitals. You see that step forward? That opens up a lot of room for a better vital shot. Now that moose is going to spook from that shot, of course, but for the future ones, there's something we can do that's going to make us a lot more likely to bring down animals that size. In the meantime, our doe is down right here in the brush, and you can see just where we shot. It was a little bit low because that was about 180 meters, but we're back behind that shoulder where there's not as much risk of that stopping our shot, and luckily, we got just at the bottom of the lung and got that vital hit and got pretty much the best XP and cash we were going to for the situation. So we are pretty close. In fact, we actually passed it to tracker to the outpost that I wanted to go and unlock. And back there at the weapon locker is a solution to our kind of big game problem. Once again, and as you always have to, we need to claim this outpost, and actually that got us enough XP to level up, so we're able to look at perks here for the first time, and we'll do that as we're going over to the weapon lockers. So if we go into our perks, we got a new perk point, and much like with the skills, you can only do like the first ones, and I actually think sprint and load is really important, so we're going to go ahead and buy that. Basically what that allows you to do is run and reload. In the past we had to be walking, now we can run and reload, and if you want to be efficient, cover a lot of ground, I tend to think that's something that is really good to have. So we're properly reloaded, and we can go back here to the weapon locker, and what's waiting on us is the 270 Stradivarius. Now, this is a weapon that was unlocked by the community in the 2017 holiday event, and I believe all players start with it in the locker. So it's a starting weapon that it doesn't start out actually in your loadout, but it's over there in the locker, and really early on, you do unlock the soft point bullets. Now, going back to the last video, I said that the polymer tip bullets tend to be best, but you can see we need 1,000 rifle score to get them. For now, the soft point bullets will work. We'll buy 10 and call that good for the moment, and those are basically up to class 8. We do need to throw those into our loadout. Actually, I didn't get them from the storage. You see, recommended classes are 4 to 8. That's going to allow us to take those elk, black bear, and moose that we couldn't take with the 243. As we're just hunting along near the water here, looking for blacktail as we were, we can see a moose kind of feeding over here in the brush, and I mean, drink zones are one thing, but this is really why hunting near the water can be so good. We are right by the water, and you can see a couple back here as well. That one mallard and that one from moose that we saw back at the area where we shot the last doe. Not only animals that are drinking spend a lot of time near the water, animals that are feeding are there often as well, but we've got our new 270, and this is a pretty decent angle for that. Now, we talked earlier about the soft point bullets and the polymer tips. We really want broadside shots, and we're going to stay well clear of the shoulder. Now, there is a skill eventually that allows you to spot animals with your weapon scope. Unfortunately, we don't have that yet, so we're going to try to time this right where we have him spotted with his head up, and then we can take that shot. Now, the thing is, he is feeding and not drinking. Animals that are drinking lift their head a lot more often than animals that are feeding. Unfortunately, as we're kind of scooting around here, he did it, but a more broadside angle is probably a better thing to go for anyway. The only thing we need to ensure is that we can spot him, because he's in that brush. It's really tough to tell exactly where his vitals are. Maybe now, if we're somewhat quick, we can get a shot right behind the shoulder with that 270 soft point bullet. And the nice thing is with the soft points, it does do a little more damage. Now, he's kind of limping off, but that's because the 270 is a rather underpowered caliber. When you see animals do this, once they've done that kind of limping animation and then they get into a sprint, that means you've got a lethal hit, we'll call it. It's rare that you ever see an animal sprinting after you shot them if they're not going to sprint and eventually go down. So we see the hunting pressure appear on the hunter mate, we see the vital blood. That was the shot we wanted to make, and that's gonna basically be the way we're taking big game until we get the 270 polymer tip bullets. Now, we do see here the low bleed rate, whereas before with all the deer we had a medium bleed rate, and the bleed rate really isn't that important. It's just saying how fast the animal's going to go down. If you see very low, there's a decent chance you made a flesh hit and the animal's not going to drop, but if you're using a lower caliber for like the animal you're shooting, such as a 270 on a moose, you're likely to see a pretty low bleed rate that eventually is going to bring the animal down. But we can kind of see right in almost through the shoulder a bit. But if we look at this, the penetration of that 270 soft point bullet is just barely enough to reach into a lung, so we really want broadside angles and nothing where we're shooting kind of like quartering through that shoulder or anything that might slow that bullet down enough to not reach into the vitals. But at this point, we can actually go and check on our weapon score here as well. We're at 388 rifle score. We're going to go ahead and basically do that exact same method of just hunting animals and getting as much rifle score as we can, and kind of get to that point where we unlock the Hyperion, because like I said, that's the next big step. But pretty much the way that we're going to go about it is everything we've talked about today. Just spotting animals and going for the shots, tracking them down, and repeat, just all near the water. We should, I believe, be 1 kill away from getting the Hyperion scope unlocked, and one thing that has really helped is using the 270 soft point bullets on the blacktail. We looked at the ammo earlier, and we did see that they are good for classes 4 to 8, and of course blacktail are a class 4 as we saw when we spotted that one, so we know we're good to take them with that. And that ammo brings them down just a little quicker than the 243, and basically ensures the max weapon score of 50 with each kill, which just kind of helps it along a little bit. And if we look and see, we are fairly close, 868. If we get 50 from this, we'll be at 918, so about 17 more than we need, and I could definitely see dropping that much using the 243 every time and losing a bit of quick kill and a bit of weapon score per kill. So I really think using the 270 there is a helpful thing to do to kind of speed it up. So, what should be our last kill with the starter scope, we right lung shot that one at 149 meters with the 270, and we have to wait for the cash reward and all that to go through, but we should see at the very end the Hyperion scope unlocked, and like I said, in my opinion, that's where things start to kind of speed up, so I believe we should see it come up on the screen after the rifle score reward, and there it is. The Hyperion 4-8x42 rifle scope is unlocked, and we know it's 12,000 cash. I've been very careful to not spend extra money on ammo. We have enough to go and get it right now, so we're going to go buy that, and we should be good to really start making progress. So this scope is essentially going to double our zoom. We can buy that, and by the way, in the process, we did level up and gain a skill point, and I wanted to wait to spend that until we got the Hyperion scope unlocked. So we could start into like spotting knowledge and stuff, but I think I want to go up here for track knowledge. It's going to give us male or female on the tracks, and let's say we would see a big animal and it runs off, at least we could kind of narrow down some of the tracks, knowing whether it was a male or female that left that particular track. But we bought the Hyperion scope, we need to go ahead and equip it here in the weapon locker, and we'll leave the starter scope. Now, we don't need that. And by the way, I don't know if this is something that we've gone over, but you don't have to have multiple iterations of a scope. I'm not sure why it is sticking when I try to put it over there, but you can have the same scope on your rifles multiple times. Maybe it's because we ran out of ammo in the 270. I don't know why it's doing that. It must have been, because that worked. So yeah, you can see you don't have to buy the Hyperion scope twice. We've got it now both on our 243 and our 270. So with the fading light, we'll go and see if we can get one more kill here, just to kind of show off the Hyperion scope and that additional zoom and just how important that is. And I think that's going to do it for this video. The difference in what we were dealing with before versus what we have now in the Hyperion scope just cannot be overstated. I mean, we can get in nice and close with that 8-power zoom, and using the 270 soft point bullets, even though we still have to be careful and make those broadside shots, we can get that whitetail buck down nice and quickly. He must have disappeared up there into the brush, and it's just going to be so much nicer to start to try to accumulate XP and cash, and along with that, skill points and perk points as we start to level up and all of that. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on next time, is kind of like ways to start trying to level up a little more quickly. Now that we've looked at how to find animals and kind of the important equipment to kind of get to early on, that's sort of the next step that we can look at going forward. But we have our whitetail buck down right here. We can take a quick look and see. It's just a right lung shot from the 270, but we can be so much more precise and take those slightly more quartering shots than we could have before with the Ascent 1-4 scope. And like I said, that's where it starts to kind of speed up. But that is officially going to do it for this video. Once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.